All right. Welcome back to the Rooted Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Webb. Today I've got a very special guest. This is Betsy Wurzel. We were just trying to figure out how to pronounce her last name, and evidently there's a couple different versions of it. uh, Betsy and I met over her own podcast, which at the moment I cannot find it. Betsy, what's your podcast?
Chatting with Betsy.
Chatting with Betsy. Now I see my note. Maybe that's a problem. I need to quit taking so many notes before we hop on. But yeah, I was on the podcast with Betsy. She's up in New Jersey, and we became buddies. I'm honored to call her a student. We've been working together for the last couple months, and it's been amazing to watch her journey and watch her progress. And just want to get her on the show to talk about that, to talk about her journey with nervous system healing and what that means to her and the communities that she served. Betsy's a caregiver of 15 years, and she is very passionate about that community. And we're gonna dive in that today. So, Betsy, welcome to the show. So good to see you.
Well, it's good to see you, and thanks for having me on, Mitch. I just love your work, and so thank you
Absolutely.
for doing what you do.
Of course, of course. So, where do we start, Betsy? I love to kind of unpack people's backstories and where you came from. So, why don't you lead us off and just tell us a little bit about yourself? Introduce yourself.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Betsy Wurzel. I live in Islip, New Jersey. Lived in New Jersey most of my life. You can tell by my accent. I lived in Chattanooga, Tennessee for 3 years. And I grew up in a family of 6 people. I was the third out of four children. And I was the scapegoat. I got blamed for everything. So imagine what that did to my nervous system. I was felt like I was not good enough. I felt like I didn't fit in. I was gaslighted. I suffered with depression. I didn't know it at the time because nobody talked about feelings in, back in the 60s when I was growing up. I had a friend that moved away. Actually, I had 3 friends that moved away very close together. I didn't know that was depression. I didn't know I was grieving.
Mm.
There's all different kinds of grieving. I didn't know that. I just felt sad. And of course, I was told you have nothing to be sad about. You shouldn't feel that way. And that's not right for people to say that to people because you feel how you feel,
Mhm.
whether it's real to someone else, but that's how you feel.
Mhm.
And I always wanted to be a nurse. My mom had, I remember she had pneumonia. I was 4 years old. And I wanted to be a nurse. Actually, this is kind of funny. I wanted to be, I wanted to be famous like Clara Barton and Florence Nightingale. I used to read about nurses. Well, that didn't happen. um, but I did go on a different battlefield, and that was with Alzheimer's. My mother-in-law had Alzheimer's, didn't know anything about it. And then my dad, and then my husband Matt had early onset. But before that, I'll back up. I met my husband Matt in church, um, and we dated 11 months. I only knew him 11 months. We got married. We were married for 39 years
Wow.
when he died. And he had a 10-year battle with early onset Alzheimer's, which completely changed my life and for the better. And I have a son, a wonderful son, who looks like his dad, and but he has more of my personality, thank goodness.
And this is Matt in the background right here, right?
Yes,
And that's young
yes,
Betsy
that
in the
was
background. How old are you in that picture?
22, almost
22.
23. Yeah, long time ago.
Good looking.
Uh, Thank you. And we, so I have a son, Josh, who I'm still a caregiver for him because he has a cognitive disability. And but he's such a blessing. He was so good with his dad. And actually, I started being an advocate because of Josh. I learned how to speak up. I
Mm.
wasn't one to speak up. I let people, push me over, walk all over me. But I'm a mama bear, Mitch. So when it came to my son, my mama bear claws came out,
Oh yeah.
and I said, there's something amiss here. And
Mm.
if I could just tell your audience, go with your intuition. I have been saying this for years. I see more people saying it now. Go with your gut instinct. If you think there's something wrong with you, your health, your family member, keep seeking the right answer. You might have to go to two or three different doctors to get a different opinion until you get peace about it, because when there's something not right.
Do you have an example or a story about when that role switched of, being the someone who kept quiet to, becoming an advocate for your son?
Yeah, it was all up to me. If I didn't speak up for Josh and make sure he had the proper education, nobody else would have.
Mm.
Um, so I had to.
And
I had
how
to
did how
step
did
up.
that make you feel when you saw other people weren't going to take care of him?
Made me mad.
Mm.
Like Matt wasn't going to speak up, which made me mad.
Mhm.
I had to. I went to the IEP meetings. He might have went to one or two, but he wasn't going to speak up. I had to speak up.
And
And
was it how is that different than how you would have reacted to being mad earlier in life? Because it sounds like you weren't allowed to have a lot of emotions.
yeah, well, it was my son, and I was fight tooth and nail for him
Mm-hmm.
to get what he wanted. So it's different. It wasn't me. It was for my son.
Hmm.
And when you're a parent, and it's something I can't explain to someone who's not a parent, but just like that you're married, you would do whatever you could for your wife, right?
Hmm.
You would fight for your wife,
Hmm.
and the same thing for a child. No, or your spouse. Your spouse is sick, you fight for them, because if you don't, who else is going to?
Yeah, yeah. That sounds like a big
So
shift.
yeah, um, it was a big change for me because I wouldn't have done that. I would not have spoken up.
Is
I
that
would
is
have
that what
just
they
been,
mean?
oh, okay.
Yeah. Is that what they mean when they say, when it's your children, it's different? I don't have kids. I have dogs,
Yeah,
but is that like
yeah,
they say parenting changes you? I guess you would agree with that, huh?
yeah. Oh, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely changes you, because uh, you have instincts that just kick in. That's why when a parent hurts their child intentionally, there's something wrong with them.
Mhm.
That's not normal. It's not normal to want to hurt your child, um, and to cause them harm.
And that's an interesting comment too, because we just got done talking about your childhood and how you were gaslit and punished for being emotional. And I saw this meme. It's really funny that I saw this right before we got on the podcast because I wrote it down when you said you were the scapegoat, and it was when we turn from the scapegoat into the escaped goat. And it was this goat that was just meh, meh, meh. It was like it was having a good time, very obviously. So it sounds like you broke out of that role. And what the question I was going to ask is, do you think our parents harm us intentionally? Because
I think, oh,
go ahead.
yeah, I think sometimes they do.
Yeah. To me, I'm constantly wrestling with: is it intentional? Is it self-aware? or is it just unconscious repeating of patterns that they learned and conditioning that they received growing up? And so,
That too.
in that side of things, you go, oh, well, they did the best that they could, not saying that what they did helped us. It did hurt us, but on one side, I can see, the intentional, and then another side, it's saying, hey, it was the best they could, and that's why it's so important that we continue to learn and be self aware and um, do this kind of work. What do you think?
Yeah, that's true. I think in my father's case, he himself was abused
Mm-hmm.
um, by his uncle.
Mm-hmm.
His uncle would beat him, and his mother was very cold. I don't think she liked him because she couldn't have any more children after him. He weighed 13 pounds when
When
he
he was
was
born,
born. 13 pounds, yeah.
I bet she was pissed.
Yeah. So I don't think she liked him. He was close to his dad. So I think that, and you bring out a point, Mitch, is true. The conditioning, the intergenerational traumas get carried through the generations,
Mm-hmm.
and it's up to us to stop it. And I think that sometimes it might not be intentional because it's just the way they grew up. But when a parent physically hurts their child and emotionally, my father did stuff to purposely make me cry.
Mm-hmm.
He would torment me. That was intentional. That was just downright intentional.
Mm.
And I used to say to my mother, he's sick. He's a sick person.
That's
So when you
quite
call,
that's a lot of awareness for a young child to pick up on that.
yeah, I think I always had awareness, which is why I was gaslit
Oh,
because
so you
no, go
mean
ahead.
like you were able to see the bullshit and
Yeah,
you were calling it out, and so you were made to think you were crazy or something like that?
yeah. My dad would tell me I was mentally ill. I was told I was mentally ill, and I did suffer from depression for a very, very long time. I don't anymore. But when I was 16, and you're talking, this was 1974, when mental health was not talked about, you did not discuss anything, how you felt. You weren't allowed to. So when I went to a psychiatric social worker, I was gaslit and I called out the abuse. And it did not go over well. Let me put it that way. I was made fun of
Hmm.
by
Yeah.
my family.
How ironic that the only one going to therapy in the family and working on the generational trauma and eventually calling that out is the one that's called, telling they're crazy or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's, I'll share this story, Mitch. My sister used to call me names, schizo and psycho. And then years later, she went to therapy.
Okay.
So I tell people all the time on my show, don't judge people because they go for support. It is not weakness. You have to be a strong person to say, yeah, I need support, and then keep going for support when you're being gaslit and being made fun of, and you're not in a supportive environment. That takes a heck of a strong person.
What does that take? What is it that keeps you showing up to do this therapy that you're talking about in the 70s when you're being gaslit at home? And also, I believe you've told me in the past that society really kind of looked down at therapy at the time. What kept you going?
I wanted to be happy. I wanted to be, I hate to say the word normal, but I wanted to be okay, I guess. And I still, to this day, at the age of 68, um, sometimes I need that reassurance that I'm okay.
Mhm.
That there isn't anything wrong with me because
So,
of being told.
so what was, it sounds like things were helpful then. I mean, I imagine that there were signs and breakthroughs and new learnings along the way that even though you were being tormented at home and ridiculed for going to therapy, that there was some positive wins that you were receiving.
Yeah, I guess learning how to deal with it, and to find out why was I depressed.
And is that what it was? Is more
And
in,
then it's still,
and
what was that
you
next?
say you don't have depression anymore.
No,
What
I
did
don't suffer.
what I'm curious what depression, what symptoms did you experience that led to the diagnosis of depression?
I was just sad
Yeah.
um, all the time as a child. I was a loner. After my three friends left, I was afraid to get close to anybody. I was fear of abandonment and getting
Yeah.
close.
Yeah.
So I didn't play outside as much. And these are things that parents need to realize with their children, Mitch. If I could bring that, I like
Please.
children get depressed. Don't think children don't get depressed. They do get depressed. They have feelings. They get depressed. Don't ignore it. If you see such a change in your child when they used to play outside and were sociable, and now they're not, something's going on. You got to investigate what that is, and always keep the lines of communication open with your children. You don't want to close those lines because they're going to go to someone else for advice that you may not want them to get advice from.
Mhm.
And and my mother used to tell you have nothing to be sad about. You shouldn't be sad. There's children, who have this problem, that problem. Yeah, they do. And they did. But I was having a problem. And it took me, would you believe, Mitch, even at 68, it took me till my 60s to realize I was grieving at 9, 10 years old, losing these friends
That's what
that
I
moved.
was. That's kind of what I was thinking as you were saying
Excuse me.
that.
Yeah.
And it's like, it, if we're grieving and we don't know what that means, and nobody's willing to talk to us about it, when we're being told you can't have these emotions, you don't have any, you don't have anything to be sorry about. I'll give you something to cry about. I know that one.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
and and then we're exhibiting these behaviors like isolation and avoiding things that we love. All of these things keep us in this pattern and push us deeper into isolating and not doing what we love to do as a child. And I imagine that's got to be really tough to. It sounds like the thing that comes to my mind is like growing up very early, doing a lot of this heavy emotional lifting on your own and being ridiculed for getting help. I mean, it seems like a really tough life as a child.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. And, you know, we didn't, well, even when someone died, you didn't talk about it and you didn't talk about the grieving. So now they say, okay, there's secondary losses like friends leaving or friends dying
Hmm.
or losing a pet or losing a job, getting a divorce, um, or considered secondary. Sometimes you have to move,
Yeah.
so you sell your possessions. And I don't think in this society, adults aren't even allowed to grieve, yet alone children. And we're afraid to talk about death and dying among adults. And we definitely don't want to talk about it when it comes to children. But the fact is, people will leave in a child's life, whether they move or they die. And we need to be able to be open to discuss it with children and let them voice how they feel.
It's like we're kind of painting a picture of what generational trauma is, and it's not always this overt abuse. It's the keeping of secrets, not talking about difficult things, avoiding emotions, moving through really difficult secondary and primary, deaths that are close to us, and it's like, what is this generational trauma thing? And it's conditioning. It's the unspoken agreements that we keep keep kicking down the road in families, and it kind of goes back to this. This is how we do things, and then we become
Yeah.
a scapegoat whenever we are like, "Hey, this is not right. I don't feel good, and I need some help."
Yeah. You don't air your dirty laundry. I'll give an example. When I was dating Matt, my younger brother hit me. I forgot why he hit me, but he hit me, and I told Matt. And Matt talked to him. Said, "You don't hit her."
Yeah.
So my mother got mad. My mother got mad. She said, "You don't air your dirty laundry. You don't say what goes on in this house. Why not?" Um, it's I always felt that my mother didn't care how anyone treated me. They could hit me, call me names, whatever, push me downstairs, push me on the sidewalk, scratch my face with a pencil. My mother didn't care. She didn't do anything when my sister did those things to me.
What do you think she cared about?
You know what? I think she cared about the other kids more.
Hmm.
Um, my mother's father, he would say that my older brother was his favorite. Bradley was his favorite. My father's father would say that I was the favorite. And my mother never said anything to her dad when he would say Bradley's the favorite. But when my grandfather would say Betsy's the favorite, she would say, "You shouldn't say that. Don't say that."
Why do you
She
think
didn't
that
like that.
is? Where is that coming from?
I don't know. She didn't. It's like want to anyone to show me favor.
Hmm.
I have no idea. I always used to wonder that myself.
To me, it sounds like she's more concerned about perception from other people. You know, because you're saying on one end she didn't care about how you were treated, but don't say the dirty laundry thing, which I feel like because that would make her feel like that's pointing back at her.
Hmm.
I don't know. That's kind of where my mind goes.
Oh, status. They were very big on status, even though they didn't have any.
Yeah.
Uh, they grew up World War II. My dad was a veteran, served in the Navy. And my mom, her generation, they went to high school and got married, although she was considered late getting married at 22.
Yeah.
But back in the early 50s, that was considered late for a
When
woman.
did they get married in the early 50s? What was normal? If 22 is late, what's
18, 19,
wow.
20.
Yeah.
So my mom was 22. Um, yeah, they got married in 1952. So she was 22, and my father was 28. So that was late for a guy back then.
So they had to grow up fast with that generation. And it sounds like growing up fast means keep your head down and don't talk about difficult things and show the best side of yourself so that we don't get judged as a family.
Right. Like family secrets, Mitch. I was told my mother had an aunt on her side that had Down syndrome.
Okay.
My father had an aunt on his side that had Down syndrome. I was told they were dead. They weren't dead. They died like in 1970. I was a teenager. Why was I told they were dead when they weren't dead? It's
Is
yeah,
that don't ask, don't tell? Is that what that is?
yeah, I guess so. But I didn't ask because I was told they were dead. So
Wow.
it wasn't until my cousin told me that this aunt was great aunt was still alive and when we were younger. And then it was when I went to a cemetery and I saw my father's aunt died in 1970. And I said, why were we told she was dead when she was alive?
And I bet they said, Betsy, be quiet.
Yeah, we don't talk about it. We weren't allowed to talk about dead people. And
I mean, it
my
makes so much sense why
yeah,
there would be so much emotional pain that continues to be passed down when we don't talk about it. We shame the ones that do and make that our family MO.
I was the I never thought of it till I got older, but I was the rebel child.
Mhm.
I was the one with the big mouth. It was, you know, it's weird that people, you don't think about how people perceive you, especially your family members. But I remember my sister telling me, you're the strong one. You stood up to daddy. My mother would
How's
tell
that
me I was the
feel? How's
strong
that feel
one.
when you say that, Betsy?
I didn't see myself that way.
Or you didn't see it, but now do you?
Oh, yeah. I definitely was very strong growing up. Even though I was sad, I there was a strength in me.
And and
Um,
and I keep seeing this escaped goat in my head, and later on in life, you became the escaped goat, right? We would call that
yeah,
going no contact now.
yeah,
Meaning for the audience, meaning we have boundaries and very limited or no contact with our family. At what point
right.
did you go from scapegoat to escaping?
Probably after I got married. Although I talked to my family, but since my mother died 2 years ago, well, even before then, I didn't really talk to my a younger brother, my sister, who's older, only 2 years older than me. My younger brother, 6 years younger than me. My brother who died was 4 years younger than, I mean, 4 years older than me. And the way I was treated when my mother was dying was terrible. And
Mm-hmm.
at the funeral was awful.
Mm-hmm.
I was ignored. I wasn't told what was going on. And I was judged because I could not drive down to see my mother because I can't drive that far. Um, and I know that my mom always thought the worst of me, and she would tell people so. Isn't Betsy terrible? Betsy did this. Betsy's doing this to hurt me. So if your other siblings are hearing this, well, what are they going to think?
So there's the
But
conditioning, and so you did have contact with your mom up until her passing. Is that correct?
hmm
And after she passed, you're like, I'm done.
yeah, um, the, I could laugh now, and I do have a sick sense of humor, folks. My mother, my mother was always too busy for me,
Hmm.
always. And even when I would call her, she was too busy. Even calling her in the assisted living center, she was too busy.
Hmm.
And I had to laugh because her excuses, it was funny. I'm cleaning out a closet. I'm putting clothes away. I'm sorting out my pills. I'm making tea. Just to let me know she's too busy to talk to me.
Whew, I gotta take a deep breath on that one.
Now, I stopped that with my son because I always, even to this day, if Josh comes and he wants to tell me something, and if I'm in the middle of something I can't stop, I'll just say, wait, Josh, until I'm done, I can give you my full attention.
Hmm.
If I can stop, I will put something on pause, put down what I'm reading, stop what I'm doing, and give him my full attention.
It sounds like you learned how to communicate and you learned
Yeah,
boundaries as well.
yes, because you know what, Mitch? Our time is valuable. And what do people really want? They want our love, attention, and time. And if we can't give that, then it needs to be looked at as to why.
It feels like it takes the humanness out of life experience if we can't have those things, if we're too busy and we it's like that conditioning. We just learn this hard outer shell, and I don't know, it feels like a more of a lizard consciousness than a loving human being. And it's I mean, it just really makes me think about the generations that came before. Your mother, and then her mother and her mother. Like, man, humans have really gotten their butts kicked over the years, and what a great example of taking that pain and turning it into something better. Because I know how well you treat your son, and you just gave us a really good example. And it's like you could easily turn around and do the same thing that was done to you, but you could see that's not how life is meant to be lived.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I caught myself. I think Josh was maybe 3 years old, and I'm trying to get him ready for preschool, and I I yelled at him, and I said something I shouldn't have said, and I went, "Whoa, whoa, Betsy, what are you doing? You are your mother and father right now. This has got to stop."
Woo!
And I stopped. I never said anything mean or nasty ever again because I did not want him to suffer what I suffered through. Um, and but it takes awareness, Mitch. It takes awareness to say, you know what? I'm breaking this chain. I'm breaking free. I don't have to be like my parents. I don't have to continue that cycle. And no, it's when my son would go over to my parents' house when they babysat. This is sad to say, but this is the truth. I was always worried how they would treat Josh. I always worried about if they were going to abuse him emotionally.
Wow.
Um, Josh was delayed in his development. I'll give you an example of abuse. Josh was delayed in his development, so he was potty trained late at 4. And my parents said to me, "Oh, you should do what we did to Bradley. We rubbed this dirty diaper in his face. That got him potty trained, and you should do the same thing." I said, "That is child abuse, and I will not do that." I said, "You can't understand that Josh has a neurological problem and he's delayed. That's on you. But I will not do that abusive behavior." Now, I called it right out to them.
Wow. Wow. So thank you for sharing that story. I know that's a tough one. Um, but I love the story of you recognizing your own conditioning coming out. And that's what this work is all about, is awareness. is just going,
Hmm.
oh my God, I did the thing that was done to me. And then going into the body and going, that feels like shit. And I don't want to keep doing that. And that was a major, sounds like a major turning point for you.
Yeah.
That's what this work is. It's just becoming aware of the things that feel like crap in our body, and what does that bring up? What emotions come up? What sensations come up? And what's our impulse when we recognize that wound that's coming up and expressing through our behavior? How do we complete that? That's what this work is. And it sounds like you did that with your son, and saying this ends here. That gives me chills when
Yeah.
I.
And I had to say, folks, first of all, I love Mitch. He's like a son to me. He's a little younger than my son, so I think of him as a son. Um, I was so glad that I interviewed you, and I was so impressed with Mitch that I went for some coaching, and it helped me so much because even though I had grief counseling and I seen psychologists, no one addresses the nervous system like you do.
Hmm.
And my nervous system was shot to poop.
Well,
It
I
was shot.
appreciate you. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's right. It was shot because as a caregiver, when you're running on adrenaline, I call it red alert. Like you're up here, and you can see my hands. You're up here. It took me so long to come down from that, and you helped me by giving me, you know, exercises to do. So when I wake up now, I mean, even though my husband's been gone 6 years, I'm like, okay. I scan the room. I'm okay. I'm safe. I could deep breathe. I can calm myself down. And actually working with you, I mean, I knew this before, but working with you really brought it home. My coughing, I've had a chronic cough, folks, for like 9 years. No, 10 years. It was all from stress. And
How did you make that connection?
then sessions with you, when emotions would come up, I'd cough more.
Hmm.
And I noticed that whenever emotions would come up, I would cough more.
Hmm.
And I used to tell the pulmonary doctor, I think this stems from stress. I have said this over and over. So he recommended me to an ear, nose, and throat doctor. And she wanted to give me medication. And I said, no, I refuse to take that. Is there any holistic way? And I said, I think this is from stress from being a caregiver. So when I told her my caregiving story, she said, you know what? Go for a speech evaluation. And I went for,
It's all avoiding. It's like this. We want to get rid of the symptom instead of addressing the root.
exactly, Mitch. Exactly. And I think doctors, I wrote an article on this on LinkedIn. I'm not a great writer, but when people are caregivers, doctors need to really observe and recognize stress hits everyone different. Everyone gets affected differently. And I always said that the stress affected my breathing and my throat. So I've been going to speech therapy since January. I found a big difference. Yes, I still cough, but it's less. I'm not taking my inhaler as much, and I'm doing exercises.
Mhm.
For what? To learn how to relax and control my breathing and my cough.
Mhm.
And that's why I love Mitch, because you really going for your coaching, just it hit the nail on the head to say, and I started coaching you in November, I believe. Yeah,
Yeah.
before Thanksgiving. And it really made me realize, because you would bring it out in the coaching. Oh, you're coughing. You're talking about emotion. And that's why, folks, you've got to be an advocate for yourself. Doctors, they want to hand out the pills. There's nothing wrong with taking pills and medication, and I'm not knocking it. You got to take it. You have to take it. But I was trying inhalers that had horrible side effects and weren't helping me, so I wouldn't take it.
As
So
you're describing all this, Betsy, I just get this like image or story of everyone your whole life just telling you to shut up.
Mhm.
And then we
Yeah.
learn to tell our symptoms that. One of the craziest mind f's of this work is realizing that we treat ourselves like we were treated until we can create awareness for that, and we learn to, instead of making the symptoms shut up, we move towards them and we see what do they need, and we learn to love them and move through the emotion that got suppressed. I think a lot of symptoms are just blocked emotions that are wanting to express.
Yes, and caregivers, if you're a caregiver out there, you need to take care of yourself. And we're taught, and we're told, got to be strong and be the superhuman person. No, you don't. And I think, well, this is generational. Right here, I'll share this story, Mitch, with you and your audience. When my husband was dying, we were told to be strong. Don't tell people that. It's not helpful. We are strong. You've been strong. And when Matt was dying, my mother told Josh, be strong for your mother. And when Matt died, she said to Josh, be strong for your mother. And I said, please, don't you ever tell him that again. Don't say that to him. And I even did a video because I got a big mouth, folks. And I told people, don't tell us to be strong. We've been strong. We've been caregivers for 10 years. We are human beings. We have emotions, and we're allowed to cry.
Yeah,
And that's the,
yes, so you're making
you
me
know,
cry over here.
that's the thing, Mitch, and especially with men. Men are brought up, can't cry, suck it up, you're a sissy, especially in my era. Even I wasn't allowed to cry,
Mhm.
you as a girl. Um, and we need to raise our boys in a constructive environment, nurturing, supportive, that if they were upset, to talk about it. And I think when a man can share his feelings and show emotion, I think that's beautiful. And we need to create that. I'm so proud of my son. I'll use my son as an example because he went to a wake one time, and the woman was the same age as me. We actually went to grammar school together. And he said, Mom, I cried at Deborah's funeral, her wake. I said, that's okay, Josh. Shows you have feeling, you have compassion. That's nothing to be ashamed of. It's okay to cry. And if a man or a woman, whatever you associate yourself as, it's okay. And this is what we need to address, especially with men, because men are caregivers and they feel like failures because they couldn't help their person and had nothing to do with that. And men really don't get the support that they need. And we need to do better as a society.
Amen.
Um,
I just want to kind of go back and summarize some of these things that you just said. It's so beautiful. It's what you're talking about is breaking the cycle. And
yeah,
what I'm hearing is, as caregivers, we often burn out. Those of us in caregiving, serving positions, and I'm saying doctors, therapists, caregivers, nurses, you know, teachers, those kind of things. There's so many of us that burn out, and it's from this old conditioning of telling us to be strong and suck it up,
Mm-hmm.
and what that implies is that if you're not suppressing your emotions, then you're weak. And so
Mm-hmm.
that weakness keeps us in the cycle of suppressing emotions and burning out. And what a great example of you breaking that cycle that so many of us can take home and can really think about and apply in our life. What would happen if these people learn to express themselves, to express the emotions that we are told are bad? Because I really think the more that I stick in this work, or learn about the nervous system and emotions, everything just stems from not allowing emotions and saying
Yeah.
they're bad. And
Yeah.
when we can let those out, our symptoms get better. How many times in our calls together would coughs come up when we were talking about emotional stuff? And when you express that emotion, it's like, where's the cough? Where's it at? I don't hear it.
Yeah.
And I think after a couple of sessions, I remember getting a message and you're saying I'm taking less medications. And that just gave me so much faith in this work. And it blows my mind because I'm someone myself who dealt with a lot of symptoms that I spent decades of my life trying to fix. And now learning how to express them feels like a freaking magic trick. Because why do we need burnout people? Why do we need medication? Why do we need to continue to suffer when we can just express ourselves?
That's so true. And, the difference with generation, when Matt died, my mother's like, well, keep busy, keep busy. And I said, I can keep busy all day long. Matt's still not here. And I said, and I'm not going to run away from how I feel. I am addressing my grieving. And I think that, so many people, Mitch, I'm in a lot of different care groups, and they're like, I can't talk about it. I'll start to cry. I hope I don't cry at the funeral. Well, so what if you do? You're a human being. I gave Matt's eulogy. I cried. I had severe laryngitis, matter of fact. Um, and I did cry. How can you not cry? Um, but I really would like people to know, grieving, it, excuse me, doesn't go away. You learn to live with it. And you eventually learn to integrate your living with your grieving because you're not the same. Grieving changes you. You will get sad certain days. Grieving is a sneaky little biatch. Hits you right upside of your head when you least expect it. And I take comfort, and it took me years to know it's okay because I used to think, oh, Matt was dying between Thanksgiving and New Year's. It's a rough time for me. 2 years after Matt was dead, 2 years, I'm still feeling that way. Something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
Why am I still feeling like this? Until I learned I'm always going to feel this way, and it's okay, and I'm okay.
Mhm.
And I'm okay with feeling sad. I don't have to fix myself. I'm not sad all day. I'm sad for a little bit.
Yes.
And it's so much better. And when my brother died, I this is it's funny, but it's not. Excuse me. I said to my mom, "Why don't you go for grief counseling?" Mitch, she bit my head off. No one needs to know how I feel. I don't air my dirty laundry. It's someone's business how I feel.
Mhm.
She would not go. That's how conditioned the silent generation is what they call them, were conditioned. You didn't talk about anything. And here is this rebel daughter who can't shut up. I will talk about it. And when I started doing videos in my car about caregiving, and my mother happened to see it, she goes, "When did you get like that?" I said, "Get like what?" "Be so verbal, you know, say how you feel." I said, "Well, I found my voice and I'm going to use it." So,
Hell yeah. And you are using it. I love it. That's, how much different would the world be if we didn't keep busy and keep from crying? I mean, how much energy does it take to suppress that? And then we get burnt out. We go, "Where's my energy?" It's trapped in a million tears that you won't express, that you won't let out. And that
yeah,
doesn't mean we want to go let it all out at one time and have this big cathartic explosion of tears. It's a little bit, it's learning too that this work doesn't mean that we don't feel. It means that we learn how to move through it. We learn how to express it. And if we don't, that's where the symptoms come from. You know, Even doing this work for multiple years myself, and I got to a point this past year where I finally learned how to let deep emotions that were more hard to access out, because it felt so scary every time I felt that energy building. That felt really scary to me. I thought anxiety activation was bad, and so every time that energy would start to move up the roller coaster, I would go into my conditioning and say, "This is bad. This isn't allowed," and then suppress it. And that energy coming back into the system felt worse than the 2 minutes that it takes to ride that wave and come back down the other side. And I think
yes,
that's why I'm doing this podcast, is because both of us dealt with chronic symptoms. I had anxiety, insomnia. I had gut issues. I was down to 140 pounds. I couldn't exercise, couldn't leave the bed. And I thought something was wrong with me. I thought I was broken. And that's what I was told when I was a kid, too. Something's wrong with you.
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah,
And then you learn, it's almost like learning to let out a fart or something. And we've just been holding
yeah,
it in our whole life.
yeah. Oh,
And
yeah,
then
there's
it
something
feels like a
wrong.
magic trick.
Yeah. Um, I really, I get to meet all interesting people doing my podcast. And there was this psychologist. Now her name just went right out of my head. But she had a really good book. You don't need to change everything. And why I can't remember her name right now, I don't know. And that really helped me a lot because I could sit with my sadness. I could sit with anxiety. And I notice now I get very anxious if something goes wrong. Like my furnace stopped working last week twice. And I got so nervous that it just drained me, because then I'm thinking, what did I do wrong? It's my fault. What did I do? Did I do anything wrong? And I go into this whole rigmarole, is the furnace guy going to yell at me? Is he going to be mad because he has to come back? Did I do something wrong? And it just escalates. And I have to stand back and go, "Okay, Betsy, the furnace isn't working. The guy's going to come. It's not your fault. How is it your fault? You didn't do anything to the furnace. You didn't go over there and kick it. You didn't touch it. It'll be okay. It's going to be okay." And that helped me a lot, because I'm more in tune now with my feelings. And, to be told all the time, "You're wrong." Oh, you're wrong to feel that way. You're wrong to say that. And I was not. um, wrong. I always ask Josh, especially during holiday time, how he's doing, checking in with him. Is there anything you need to talk about? How you doing with your grieving? I know Father's Day is very tough for him, and it always will be. And that's the beauty of expressing ourselves, because I told Josh, we might always feel this way on Father's Day. That's okay. It's okay. So we feel sad, we go to the cemetery, and then we do something fun. But we acknowledge the sadness, and then we go on. I think it's when you're stuck in that, and then you might need further, help.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, yeah, yeah. I
with
mean,
you,
you're
as
stuck in it because emotions are there to be expressed. And when we're told they're bad, they eventually get louder and they turn into symptoms. And then you're going to need some help. And that's why I'm so glad
yeah,
we're having this conversation, because this needs to be normalized. And I'm so glad that you saw that as a young girl and eventually broke that cycle with your child and your family. I mean, that's why we do the work.
you know what, Mitch? I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Gabor Mate.
Mm-hmm.
He's a trauma expert.
Yep.
I've heard him, and I've heard other people on Instagram. And now there's a lot of mental health people on Instagram. Um, a lot of diseases is caused by suppressing how we feel. And
Absolutely.
now they're even saying cancer. People have cancer, people have autoimmune diseases, is because we have suppressed. And that's the thing people need to, you don't have to be a screaming lunatic, yelling your feelings out. But if you're upset, recognize it, acknowledge it. We weren't allowed to acknowledge that. I wasn't allowed. My mother probably wasn't allowed. My father probably wasn't allowed. And I've taught my son, acknowledge your feelings, validate it. You're sad today? That's okay. You're sad at this moment? You recognize it. And I share with Josh, you know what? I was feeling like Valentine's Day. I said I was feeling a little sad, got a little teary eyed. I know that's okay. I'm not broken. And then I smile thinking of Valentine's Days that I spent with Matt.
Mm-hmm.
And our first one. I still remember that, the first one. And that's what we have to do. We have to not run away from how we feel, but to acknowledge it and say, you know what? Caregiving sucks sometimes. And life sometimes does suck. It can suck, but it also is good.
Right.
And now at my age, I realize how precious time is. I am much more happier with myself and at peace, and am enjoying life a lot more now than I've ever did. I wish it didn't take me so long. So, folks, don't let it take you until your 60s. If you're young, 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, get help, get support, contact Mitch. Um,
That's right.
and,
Contact Mitch.
you know, you I want people to know, if you're my age, it's never too late to change. Never. Even if you're 70, 80, 90, it's never too late to change and flip your script. You're not the story that people told you that you were. Don't let people put you in a box, and don't stay in that box that people put you in. Find out who you are and love who you are. Be happy with who you
Oh,
are.
dang, Betsy, you're on a roll, girlfriend. I love it. Thank you for sharing all that. And I gotta say, pointing out
Welcome.
as someone in their about to be 40, um, there's so much pointing at the what you call the silent generations and saying,
Yes.
they're not willing to do this work, and really watching you progress through this work and really just own it and dive into it and get some good results there. Definitely changed my mind about anybody can do this work, and I agree with you there. And all it takes is a little bit of awareness and a little bit of desire to change or to be better or to see the things that we've been avoiding. Maybe I don't know if it's change or better. Yeah, it's just turning the light on in the room that we've been afraid to go in and slowly shining that light on the things that we've avoided and letting your body be the compass. We don't have to dig. We don't have to figure out. We don't have to fix. The nervous system will constantly give us the next thing when we can slow down and just be with it. So thank you so much for telling your story. It's been an honor to work with you and to have you on the podcast today. And before we wrap up, I just want to give you an opportunity to. I know you got a Facebook group. I know you got a podcast. So and like I mentioned at the beginning, I don't know if I mentioned this now, but me and Betsy, we'll put the link to her podcast with the podcast that we did together in the show notes. And if I miss that and you see it, put it in the comments to remind me. But Betsy, promote yourself. Let us know where we can find you before we hop off.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mitch, for having me on your show. I enjoyed talking to you and just want to encourage everyone. You know, I didn't realize my nervous system really needed to be regulated until I did talk to Mitch and had him on my show, and learned a lot from watching him, watching you on Instagram. So thank you for the work that you do, Mitch. You're helping a lot of people. And I am on Facebook. My Facebook page, my own personal page, is Betsy E. Wurzel, Wurzel. I have a support group for caregivers, #kick Alzheimer's ass movement. I named it that because either it was going to kick my ass or I was going to kick its ass. That's a whole nother show. And my podcast is Chatting with Betsy. And I'm on Spotify, Spreaker, iHeart, Amazon Music, I think Apple. I think I'm back on Apple. And you could Podbean. And I talk about all sorts of topics with all different types of people. And I enjoy doing that. And I just want to help people, provide people with resources that I wish I knew about or had.
Betsy, I appreciate you sharing that. You're definitely helping people and spreading the good word. And thank you again for coming on today. It's great to see you. And for the
Good
listeners,
seeing you
thanks for
too.
tuning in. If you've made it this far, please give us a like, a follow, a comment. If you have questions for Betsy or myself, leave them in the comments below. And like Betsy said, if you're interested in one-on-one coaching and learning what your healing your nervous system is all about, I've got a quiz below in the show notes to kind of get you started. And I've got a free 30-minute complimentary call for those that are interested. So, Betsy, one more time, thank you for tuning in, and I will definitely see you next time. Bye bye.
Yes, thank you. And folks, do it. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.